Check this out. This is the Diatone Roma F6 6-inch FPV drone. There's a couple reasons I'm excited to review this one. And believe it or not, this is the very first pre-built full-size FPV drone that I've ever had. Diatone's Mamba boards are my go-to, and there's an F7 board inside this, and I've always just been a big fan of their products. So let's see how this pre-built 6-inch freestyle drone stacks up. All right, so let's do a quick little unboxing video. So once you open it up, we have some props. This is probably just an assembly sheet. So this is basically just kind of telling you how the drone goes together and all the little parts that are involved. They give you the manual for the flight controller and ESC, so that's nice. You can know what boards you're working with. So if you have to do any soldering, you won't have to do any soldering because it's already installed, but if you did have to install something, you'll have the little sheet so you know the pinout. This is a manual for the VTX. Looks like we have a little GoPro mount with some tools, a USB cable, some battery straps, a receiver plug, and a keychain, I think, or a card. I'm not really sure what this is. Some additional plastics. So this drone has little plastic pieces installed, and it looks like these are just additional parts that are gray. Then we have some wires, battery grip, some extra screws, wires, antenna tubes, zip ties, cool stuff. And of course, at the very bottom is the drone. So out of the box, you won't have to do any soldering or any tuning. All you have to do is bind it with your controller and make sure that the switches are set up correctly. Before I show you how to do that, let's touch on what's inside this drone. So this drone has a 30x30 Mamba F7 MK2 stack in it. This is capable of 3 to 6S, and it has a 55 amp 4-in-1 ESC on the very bottom. You can get this in analog or digital. This is the analog version, and it has a Mamba Ultra 1000, which is a 1-watt VTX that's actually capable of long range. So we should be able to get some good distance with this VTX. Speaking of long range, this drone also comes with a little GPS on the back right here. This is an M8 Plus GPS, and it's perfect for if you're planning on doing any long range flights with this drone. You can set this up to do return home, and then in the case that this disconnects from your radio, it'll come back home to you. So that's a nice little feature back here. The camera up front is a Runcam Phoenix 2, which is a 1000 TVL camera, so pretty good resolution. So the motors that are on this drone are Mamba Toka 2306.5 1650 kV motors. So these are capable of 6S, and each motor comes with this little piece of foam on top to protect it. And the props that are included are Tri-Blade HQ 6-inch props. So this drone has a TBS Crossfire installed right up here, and you can get this with a couple different receivers installed already, or you can get it without any receiver and then you can just install your own. So when you take these little pieces of foam off, it actually tells you which way to put the props. So this one, it tells you you want the prop direction going clockwise, whereas this one's counterclockwise. If this is your first FPV drone, a good rule of thumb, motors 1 and 4 will always spin the same direction, and typically that's clockwise, and then motors 2 and 3 will spin counterclockwise. I like how it comes with these little pieces of plastic in here that are just kind of protecting the motor wires, so you're not gonna have to worry about a zip tie or the wires kind of flopping around. So that's nice. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the props on here, get the battery pad, get the GoPro mount installed, put a strap on here, put the antennas on, and then we'll hook this up to Betaflight and make sure we have stick movement. All right, so here it is all built up. We got the antenna on here, we got the props, we got all the little pieces of plastic, we have our GoPro mount and a strap and the battery grip. So we are pretty much ready to fly. The only thing I have to do now is connect the receiver to my controller. And to do that, I don't actually have to plug a battery into this. I can just connect it to Betaflight, and that will give the receiver power. To connect it to Betaflight, this little cover on the side, these literally just pull right off. And you do get all of these green pieces in gray. So if you like gray better, you can swap them out or just keep them as spares. But the USB is right there. So I'm gonna go connect this to my computer, get the receiver all paired up with my Mambo, and make sure I have stick movement in Betaflight, and we'll take this thing out for a flight test. All right, so I just got the receiver all paired up. I'm gonna plug it in and see if we get stick movement in Betaflight. So it's all connected. I have signal right there. So I'm gonna go over to the receiver tab. And if you see something like this, where it's just kind of spinning out of control and you move the throttle and for some reason roll is going, make sure all the other switches work good. But if you see something like this where the sticks aren't calibrated right, all you gotta do is come over to this right here and change that from default to spectrum. Just kind of play around with these and one should work. So that one changes throttle. So that one fixes it. So now I'm gonna hop over to, make sure you save. I'm gonna hop over to modes, and we can see ARM is on aux 1. So I want this to be ARM. So when I click this, it should go ARM. And it looks like that's also turning on air mode. So I'm just gonna put air mode permanently on. So I'm gonna just close that. I'm gonna make sure that this is the beeper, and it's not. So I'm gonna click auto, flick this, and then it'll select aux 2. I'm just gonna do that with all of your switches, make sure that it all matches up. And then when you're done, hit save. And like I said, I'm gonna put air mode just on permanently, so that's under configuration, and just turn it from there, save, reboot. And I'm gonna just get my other switches set up. There we go. Once you have everything set up, just kind of turn everything else off. Make sure all the switches are working good. This looks good. So just hit save, and we'll take this thing out for a flight test. All right, final thoughts. I love it. This thing flies like a 5-inch, but it also feels like a 7-inch. It's a nice hybrid. I was getting about 5 to 6 minutes of flight with this 1350 6S LiPo. I think that with a GoPro on board, you could probably push it to an 1800 or 2000 6S battery and get even longer flight time. I like that they include all the extra cables and even the additional plastic pieces. The tune that comes on it is extremely smooth. The motors stayed nice and cool. My antenna popped off at some point and I wasn't able to find it, so now I have this one on here. Whatever, dude. That flight that you just saw was in 25 milliwatts and I was getting pretty standard range for that power. And this brings me to my first and only real gripe with this drone, and that's that the VTX table and power levels for some reason don't come all set up in Betaflight. I like changing the VTX channel and power through the OSD using smart audio, so that's what I planned on doing. But since it didn't come all set up, I wasn't able to test the higher output modes. So this is an additional thing that you'll need to set up, and I'm not really sure why it's not set up on a ready to fly drone like this. Basically, your VTX table in Betaflight will look like this, but you want it to look like this. Just manually key in these channels and add 4 power levels with these values and you'll get 1 watt and other power levels to work. I'm sure that with 1 watt on this drone, you'll be able to get some awesome range. Since I have the power levels all set up now and this drone has GPS, in the near future, I'm actually going to be publishing a video on how to set up the return to home feature in Betaflight. And in that video, I'll be testing out 1 watt on this VTX, so keep an eye out for that one. Like I said, this is my first pre-built full-sized freestyle FPV drone, and Diatone did not disappoint. Most of my quads are digital, and honestly, I'll probably end up taking this VTX out and putting a Caddx Vista in here since I like it so much. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, leave the video a like, and if I missed anything or if you have any questions, leave a comment down below.